What's going on, YouTube? I thought I would do a quick review or overview of my 2000 Subaru Impreza Outback Sport. I'm going on 3 years of having this car now. I've put close to 20,000 miles on it, which I know that isn't a lot, but for me it has been because I haven't had to drive to work for the last 2 years because of COVID and all that stupid stuff. But yeah, so right off the bat, this car, just by looks alone, I really do enjoy it. And if you're a Subaru person, all of the old GC8 or GF8 body styles were just some good looking cars and really iconic. And that was one thing I really liked about this car whenever I saw it post for sale on Craigslist. And I needed a good, reliable daily driver compared to my 2006 Outback XT that was turbocharged and had a couple of issues that I was never able to find up until recently. So with that being said, I'm going to jump into all the things that you might want to look out for if you want to go and buy one of these older Subarus, specifically on this platform or this generation. So right off the bat, it's going to be the quarter panel rust on both sides. So about 2 years ago, I went to do this on my own, and I screwed it all up. I could not get the body filler to go in there correctly, and I oversprayed, as you can tell by the two different colors on the bumper. So I ended up going to a body shop and having them fix this for about 700 bucks. And of course, the year that they fixed it, we got a lot of snow, got a decent amount of snow last year and a little bit this year. But with it being West Virginia and I guess part of the Rust Belt, it's gonna come back. But for a 22-year-old car and for a Subaru of this generation, you cannot complain about that rust. There's far worse things that could go wrong if the rust wasn't the case. So I ended up getting that fixed, and that was something that that is something that I would recommend with anybody that looks at these older cars, is to always look out for the rust. So underneath the rear, I don't have too much rust. If I do, it's all surface rust from what I've been able to see and find so far the few times I've had to actually go under here for something. But yeah, the rust is definitely one of the first areas that I would look at for these cars. Second would be the pinch welds. If you're gonna be jacking up your car to work on it a lot, you always wanna make sure you have good pinch welds. This one unfortunately doesn't. It was on a lift a lot of the times for the owner right before me that had it. Thankfully, I'm the third owner, and he worked at a dealership, so of course it was up on the lift the few times that he had it in there. And with it being a 22-year-old car, you're gonna have some metal that's ready to give way and stuff like that. So again, underneath the front, not too bad. Can't really complain about it at all. I got super lucky finding this, that it wasn't completely rusted out. So yeah, so with that being said, another thing that I like to nitpick or worry about are gonna be the door seals and the trim around the windows. So mine are a little bit more worn on the front compared to the rear. Like the doors open and close very nicely. They shut good. No issues there. But then on the front, you know, there's been countless times where me or my wife have gotten out of the car, shut the door. No, that didn't really. Damn it. And we've gotten out of the door and we've left it kind of cracked like that, and ends up draining the battery down a little bit. Not something that's super serious, but again, it's something that you'll notice when you're going down the road, like the window gusset and just the seals kind of around where the door is constantly being pinched by all this stuff. You'll notice it going down the road, a little bit of hissing noise, wind noise and stuff like that. And again, a 22-year-old car, my windshield It has a lot of cracks, not cracks, but chips, scratches, very fine things that you would think you could get off with some Windex or some sort of car cleaner. But it is what it is. It's still holding up. So yeah, let's see. I'm trying to think of the next thing that I would be worried about. So everybody always talks about reliability with these cars. And so everything that I've done so far since I've had this has been pretty straightforward and simple stuff that normal people would do with their car. So here's my poor excuse of a list. But when I got this car, first thing I did was change out the brakes. I did the front pads and the rotors, and then just the rear drum covers. Since the front has more action going on, I didn't worry about replacing the actual brake portion of the drums in the back. Just some new pads and rotors. They were rusted and obviously not stopping very well. Obviously, oil is something that you should do every so often. I did mine at 5,000 intervals for the first two changes that I did, and again on the third change. And this time I'm kind of riding it out to the 7,000 mark. I see stuff all over the place for Subaru. You know, change it every 3,700 miles, every 5,000, every 7,000. I haven't had an issue with either one of those. On my turboed Outback, I did it close to every 4,000 miles, and I was probably overdoing it. So this has been just fine. The oil hasn't gone bad or anything like that. Haven't heard any knocks or stuff that would happen. So as far as everything else goes, the other big thing for a car this old would be the suspension. You're going to have your wear and tear on the body, the frame, and different components, but if you're driving on terrible roads like in West Virginia, you're going to need some suspension. So I put some coilovers on here. I've got the Racelands, which those are fairly rough as they are, being an entry-level coilover. And I did the tie rod ends, and I got an alignment with that. This car was kind of all over the place, and the coilovers that were on it before were not very safe. They were getting loose on the locking pins and stuff like that. So yeah, I haven't done too much. And then of course I had to replace a knock sensor, which I'll show you when I get to the front of the car. But I'll give you my thoughts and opinions on the inside of the car now. So it is an early 2000s car, late 90s. You're going to get kind of, it's not ugly to me, but it's the bland zebra seating, cloth covering, whatever you want to call it. And it just, you're not going to see this in a car now. You'll see some more fake carbon or plastic and stuff like that, the suede. And yeah, I mean, all in all, this car is simple. It's not in your face, and it tells you everything that you need to know. You don't need some fancy hardware or app telling you that, hey, whoever's in the passenger seat, their seat's at 84 degrees and stuff like that. It's very simple, to the point, and I love it. I love the older interior. But yeah, with that being said, it is old. So I have had to replace some of the lights behind the cluster. They went out, and thankfully all you have to do is replace a couple bolts, or take out a couple bolts here, move the cluster itself out, and unplug the rear, and boom, you just got to find the right voltage for the lights or whatever and stick them in, and now it all works. The only other thing I had trouble with was the adapter or the cigarette lighter. I replaced the full assembly and the fuse for that, and now it works. But as far as storage goes, there's not any big compartments like in a lot of these newer vehicles. The most we get is this, little console. I've got a bunch of quarters in there for tolls, obviously spare chargers, and it does act as a cup holder. And, every Subaru owner should have that, a code reader, But all jokes aside, thankfully I haven't had to use it that much. So yeah, again, it is early 2000s. So with that being said, it's not your normal family car anymore. It's very tough to get into and out of if you're almost 6 foot like I am and now fat as hell because he's worked at home for the last 2 years. So my seat in the front's all the way up, and I'm like, I basically got to do a split while I'm sitting back here. And same with how my wife is. Her seat's back just so we can be comfortable. It's great for the passenger and driver, but for the rear, it's essentially been converted into a BRZ for the normal day Americans. And same with the head. My head is, one bump and these coilovers are going to send our heads to the moon or something. So not the greatest for the rear end, but again, it's a 22-year-old car. You can't complain that much because this was the style back then and the size. So that leads me to the next thing, is the plastic trim and everything else like that around the car. I just knocked that loose. The trunk is nothing but plastic. So obviously there's carpet underneath there. But in terms of the rear end, every bump, it always seems to be a new noise or something going down the road. A lot of rattling, a lot of clicks and stuff in the rear, but again, that's just something that I could easily take 20 minutes out of the day, get all these plastic fasteners out and just look for what's rustling around in the back. But it is an old car, and the interior as well. So that leads me to the last and final thing. I'm trying to keep this somewhat short, but I do enjoy talking about it, is going to be the engine. What is in this 2000 Impreza is the 2.2 EJ Subaru Boxer engine. So if you know anything about Subaru, it's one of their more reliable engines. It's naturally aspirated, meaning there's no turbo, there's no supercharger, none of that stuff, which Subarus don't come with superchargers normally, but people have done some crazy things. But anyway, yeah, I haven't had any issues with this. 134,000 miles on it. Like I said, I've put 20,000 miles on it or close to it. One of the things that I would always look for when going to get a Subaru, or specifically an older car, is going to be your leaks. You always want to look around your head gaskets, around the timing belt area, and obviously on top of the head and the engine itself. You want to look in the cracks, smell for anything. Always check the fluid levels of stuff when you go to buy it, and just things like that. When I bought this, I went through all that, didn't find anything, didn't notice anything. One thing I did notice shortly after getting it was the battery. I did have to replace the battery because my car would have a hard time starting. It didn't want to turn over or anything, and I would kind of just get like less power in some of like the interior stuff. Like it would take longer for my phone to start charging and things like that. But with the new battery, all of that was fixed. The other issue that I kind of have right now is the starter, which kind of grinds and makes like this weird noise whenever the car starts up. I'm assuming that's what it is, but it only happens every so often. It's like when it's colder out, it does it. And then when it's really warm, it doesn't really seem to do anything. But I do have a replacement that I'm going to throw in here soon. I might make a video of that. I just don't know how that's going to go. Yeah, I've got the sheesh sticker. I was at Boxer Fest. They were giving it away. I had to throw it on there for the meme because all the kids were saying it at the time. I know, pretty cringy, but yeah, the only other issue I had to do to replace was the knock sensor, which if you can see down there, it's that bolt with the black underneath. I got a knock on bank 1, I believe. Don't quote me. This might be bank 2 because it's 1 and 3. Well, I don't want to say something the wrong way, but yeah, I replaced that. The car was really slow, lagging, almost as if there was no power whenever that was happening. I got the code reader, replaced it, and now it's back to normal. So coming up on 140,000 miles, I might do the spark plugs, fix the little things. I definitely need to clean up this engine bay when it gets warmer, just to keep this thing looking good. I'm planning to go to Boxer Fest again, hopefully to maybe get this in the show. I would like to get some side skirts for the sides to kind of cover up those pinch welds that are damaged. I'm not going to use those anymore, just for my safety and whoever else is working on this. But yeah, overall, this is such an amazing car. If you can ever get your hands on an older one, an older Subaru or something like that that you want to have fun with, you want to enjoy and have something reliable, I would definitely recommend it. There is a large aftermarket for these cars, and then there's also a downside to having these cars, is that some OEM specific parts are harder to find than others, or you might have to build the parts relating to the part that you want to fix. So in my case, I thought about going back to stock suspension. I can find the front end struts and springs, but then in the rear, I have to build from the ground up. So just your plain strut, then your spring, then your strut mount, all that. You have to put it together. Unless I'm just not looking in the right places, or most of them are discontinued, I don't know. And then the other thing, as far as the lights go, these are just aftermarket amber lights that fit for these cars. There were HIDs on this, but I took them out because I was wondering if that had anything to do with the battery dying on this. So I just went back to stock. I was gonna put in OEM fog lights, but again, these were like $400 from Subaru, and I took these out, and there's not really any room for mounting anything in there, so I just didn't want to mess with it, so I just threw a 14-inch light bar on. I know some people might hate on that, but I'm not like everybody else that runs around with this on 24/7. These older cars do need better light, so if you can put a HID kit on there, I definitely recommend it. But for the back roads and mountains that I go through, the light bar just worked out better, and it's easily removable. I could easily patch up the 2 little holes that are on there, but again, you can see the other video that I posted, so I didn't want to keep this too long. I don't know what else I'm missing or what I could talk about, so please down in the comments let me know. Yeah, I truly enjoyed this car. I'm probably never going to get rid of it unless I have a kid or something, God forbid, or if I'm really hurting for money, again, God forbid that. So please let me know if you have any questions, or if you want to talk about anything, just hit me up. Try to be good about it. Yeah, let me know. If anybody out there is looking for one, good luck and have fun with it. So thanks.